And we're live. It is Wednesday, August 20th, the year of our Lord 2025. It is 8 o'clock a.m. And I am back among the living after a brief period of unconsciousness yesterday morning. Nothing to worry about. Go get a colonoscopy, folks. You need one. Even if you don't think you need one, you need one. And it is actually precisely the people who least think they need one who need one most, because the people who think they need one go get one and find out what the state of their colorectal cancer risk is. But it is the people who don't think they need one who let that colon cancer fester, and fester is exactly what it does. And then it is too late. So go get your colonoscopy. Takes, wipes out a day or two every 5 years. It's not a big deal. And then you wake up and you're fine. Now, I want to tell you all a story about things that happen when you lose your passport. I scheduled a trip to Ukraine and then promptly lost my passport, or promptly discovered that my passport was missing. And I don't really want to have to postpone or cancel my trip to Ukraine. And I kind of know the passport is lying around somewhere because I didn't, throw it into the Potomac River or anything. So I have been looking for my passport. And one of the things that happens when you look for a passport is that you find all kinds of other things that are not your passport. So, for example, I found this pair of glasses, which has been lying around missing and kind of mysteriously missing for a long time. And I've been annoyed about it, and I haven't been able to figure out what happened to these glasses. And then I discovered the answer. They were lying under my night table. And I also found a pair of Bose earbuds that I have loved very deeply, and I bought one pair of them and then promptly lost it on a trip. But I loved these headphones so much that I bought another pair, and then they disappeared. And these headphones are expensive enough that uh, once I had lost a second pair, I thought to myself, Wittes, you do not deserve good headphones anymore. You are using only the cheapest wireless headphones and wired Apple earbuds because you go through good headphones like, I don't know, like they were not, $300 pieces of equipment or something. And so I have deprived myself of a decent pair of headphones ever since. And I have been aware that these Bose headphones were somewhere around the house because they are so good that though they have been missing for months, the battery has not completely depleted. And every now and then they mysteriously connect to my phone. And so I know they are physically somewhere around the house, and I have been unable to locate them because that's the way I am. I found them yesterday, and that was exciting, but they are not my passport. And then there is this one other thing that I found while looking for my passport, and it is the most confusing of all, because I did know that I was missing these glasses, and I did know that I was missing my lovely pair of Bose noise canceling headphones, because, um, you know, I was aware of that because the Bose headphones kept connecting to my phone with increasing infrequency over time, and the glasses were just, missing. And so I was aware of that. I was not aware that I was missing this shirt because I did not know that I had this dog shirt. And just to be clear, um, it says people are disorganized motherfuckers. And it appears to be a dog wearing sunglasses or maybe just regular glasses. I'm not sure. I have no idea where it came from. And when I found it yesterday, again, it is not my passport. When I found it yesterday, I assumed I didn't look at the dog. I assumed it must be Tammy's shirt because it's a bit small for me, and I don't own this shirt. And so I folded it and put it in a pile of her stuff. And later in the day, she came to me and said, "Why did you leave me this dog shirt?" And I realized that it was a dog shirt, which made it overwhelmingly likely that it was mine and not hers, and that I have no idea where it comes from, except that it says people are disorganized motherfuckers, which is, of course, what this monologue is about. And when I say people are disorganized motherfuckers who lose their passports and then find all kinds of other things, I am talking about nobody other than myself, which is to say that the sun is not shining, but the birds are chirping. It's going to be a great frickin' day. And you are watching Dog Shirt TV. And it's a goddamn revolution in morning television. And one of the revolutionary features, of which there are many, is that sometimes I come to after a minor surgical procedure, and I don't make any plans for the show because I actually took the day off yesterday, kind of looked for my passport, and lay around the house in a dopey state. And so I woke up this morning not really knowing what we were doing on the show today. And I texted the group chat uh, and asked who was coming on the show. And the estimable Michael Feinberg um, said that he would if he could, but he wasn't sure if he could because, he might have the kind of thing that happens at his time of life happen this morning unexpectedly. And the estimable Alicia Wanless said, "I'm not fully functional, but I'm available for emergency backup." And 2 minutes before the show, the estimable Mike Feinberg texted me that he had been deployed on errands, and the estimable Alicia Wanless gamely said, without saying that she was fully functional, um, "I'll be there." And so she is. And that is one of the things we love about Alicia, that she is here when needed, whether she's fully functional or not. And again, the theme, people are disorganized motherfuckers, is an important one. Again, the people in question is me. I didn't plan today's show. I'm sorry. And we're coming to that, Alicia. And another one of the revolutionary features of the show is that we just make up our own damn traditions. And one of the damn traditions that we make up is that Alicia wears shirts that we always introduce her by discussing, um, all of which is a long-winded way, a 9-minute long-winded way of saying that we are not allowed to have fun anymore, but we are allowed to welcome the estimable Alicia Wanless and ask her about her shirt. What's going on your shirt, Alicia?
In Ottawa the other day to go see Murray Brewster, who was on our show, and I walked past this in a tacky tourist shop near Parliament Hill, and I said I had to have this because it is a reminder that we are not the 51st state.
You know, Trump has been awfully quiet about that recently. What do you
Because
think is
he's
going
in
on
peril
there?
of losing one of his states and having only 49 if he keeps going with Alaska.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, like, I don't think he knows the symbolic dimensions of having Putin to Alaska. I think it was just like an accident. Um, yeah, Trump is seems to be mostly leaving Canada alone these days after the almost random drive-by imposition of a bunch of tariffs a few weeks ago. Um, uh, how are Canadians feeling about um, you know, not a lot of talk about uh, Canada by Trump recently. Are you guys still seething with rage in that quiet, friendly Canadian way?
I don't know. Probably. I mean, we're passive aggressive, so it could linger for a very long time.
Right, but I
Um,
mean, like,
the
you
news
must
that
talk about it among yourselves.
we've had other things happening, like the country's on fire, and then Pierre Polyev was trying to win a different
Is
riding,
anybody
which
else
he
having
did.
trouble with Alicia's connectivity, or is this a problem on my end?
It's me.
Alicia appears frozen to me. Okay, Alicia is definitely your audio is cutting in and out. Um uh Wait, you may be okay now.
I switched the providers. I don't know if it's going to hold. Clearly, I'm not made for morning television. I'm going to have to move to do
No, you're a
this. And
revolution in morning television. One of the revolutions in morning television, by the way, is that the audio and technical issues are part of the show. They all resolve before it's not like this will show up on the podcast or on the video version because it's recording locally and it will upload. So it's really only an imposition to the Greek chorus and to me, and it makes the conversation difficult. But I actually have
I
no
can do
idea
that all
what.
on my own. I don't need the
Yeah,
internet to
exactly.
tank
You
out for
don't
that.
need technical help annoying the Greek chorus or making conversation difficult with me. Anyway, you were
Speaking of
saying,
which, well, no, I was gonna. Are you telling people what your minor surgery was? Because if you're not, then I'm not going to ask you why
oh
you
no,
didn't do
I know
something that
I
a
said at the
famous
beginning
person
that
did.
I gave a clear instruction to everybody: go get your colonoscopy. It's no, it's a
Okay.
total.
I'm surprised you didn't do like a Ryan Reynolds on this one.
What is doing a Ryan Reynolds consist of?
Ryan Reynolds broadcast his colonoscopy.
Oh, so did Katie Couric years and years and years ago. So I didn't do that because I was unconscious for my colonoscopy. Normally, you don't actually do a colonoscopy under local anesthesia. And by the way, I also had an upper gastrointestinal endoscopy since I was going to be under anyway, and so I wouldn't have been able to talk during it. Um, so I did not broadcast my uh um I did not broadcast the colonoscopy. And um but I thought about it.
Yeah, Ben had a general. He went out. He got dopey. Just to be clear, it wasn't local. And he had a twofer. I'm just clarifying in the Greek chorus here.
Yeah, I think most people, most of the time, it's not actually technically general anesthesia but it's a you're out for it. It's a um,
You want to be out for that. Nobody
oh
who wants to
yeah.
be awake for this.
Yes, Doug points out that it's propofol, and that is exactly what it is. And you go to sleep and you sleep hard. Um, I think it is technically not general anesthesia for reasons. I'm not sure what the difference actually is between propofol and general anesthesia. I think it has to do with how catatonic you are, uh, but yeah, I was out, and I was definitely in no shape to be live streaming. I'm not sure it would have been coherent, especially because there was
I mean,
a
that's the
scope shoved down
entertainment
my neck.
value.
I mean, sure, it would have been dramatic. Like, ooh, look at his esophagus.
Ben's quiet for once. Uh, right.
No, no, I think you know, look, if people clamor for it, it's all about the content. And maybe 5 years from now,
If
I'll,
there's demand,
if
you'll
there's
meet.
demand, I have this sense that the demand is going to be minimal. Um, you never know. So,
I
what
don't know.
is on your mind this morning?
I'm speechless over this one. Well, that was on my mind.
Yeah.
Which I don't know what that says about me, but here we are. What's on my mind? Not much. It feels pretty empty. I mean, just like focused on work and oddly thinking about comms.
Comms?
Yeah. Like,
What about
how do
comms?
awkward people who don't like self-promoting, what kind of communication can they do to get ideas out there? I mean, you could write a book, but it's like traumatizing and big, and you have to constantly push it, and it's super awkward. And then, do people read that much anymore? And then you guys do
Speaking of
newsletters, which
which,
is
wait, wait,
great.
wait, wait, wait. We're going to come back to this, but the first meeting of the Make America Read Again book club, speaking of do people read anymore, uh, which will be on August 25th at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. So eat West Coast friendly. Um,
It's like next Monday.
Yeah, it will be next Monday at 7 p.m. It will run for as much as 2 hours. It's a full book club meeting. It is not Dog Shirt TV. I mean, it is Dog Shirt TV. And it will not be broadcast to the general public. It is only for members of the Greek chorus. And it will feature, as you all may remember, Mike Feinberg's suggestions, John le Carre's Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, and Ben McIntyre's A Spy Among Friends. Remember, all uh, Mara Book Club will feature one piece of fiction and one piece of nonfiction, and they will be related. The second meeting of the Mara Book Club, which will be on the 25th,
Carol T. suggestion.
uh, yes, Carol T's suggestion was to start with Tinker Tailor. Um, and uh, the second meeting will take place exactly to the minute 1 month later and will feature Alicia's book, The Information Animal. And remind me, Alicia, what your fiction pairing is.
It's The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue
That's right,
by
which I
V.E.
have not
Schwab.
read yet. Um, and I will begin reading it just as soon as I have finished rereading Ben McIntyre's A Spy Among Friends, which I have to say is a wonderful book. And I did just notice in it something that I didn't notice the first time I read it, um, which is that there is a character in it. And remember, this is nonfiction, this is a real person whose operations to infiltrate Albanian nationalists into Hoxha's Albania were all betrayed by Kim Philby. And many, many Albanians got killed as a result, hundreds or thousands of them, and their families got killed as a result of the betrayal of these operations by Kim Philby. The name of this character is Colonel Smiley. I forget the first name. And I wonder, since Le Carre, of course, is a contemporary of these gentlemen and actually knew Kim Philby, and may have been exposed by him himself at one point. And of course, wrote the afterword to the Ben McIntyre book. I wonder if it is an accident that George Smiley, who first makes his appearance around the same time that Kim Philby is initially exposed, I wonder if it is an accident that there is a Smiley character in real life as well. So that will be on Monday, and you should all join. And again, for those who are still freeloaders and not paid subscribers, you don't get to participate in this. Sorry, Alicia, I cut you off when you said people don't read again. You were talking about comms.
Well, Carol T reads. I was just going to say, for anybody who happens to be in London before the end of September, there is a good exhibition on, it's called MI5 Official Secrets, which is at the National Archives. It's a little bit of a hike to get out to, but it was pretty cool. I dragged friends there on my birthday this year.
Excellent. So your continue your thought on communications for introverts.
I don't know if I have answers yet. I mean, I'm amazed at how you and Holly manage newsletters. We briefly discussed this, you and I, in a chat about people being able to like churn out ideas on like a daily basis. I think this is pretty, I marvel at this. And then just been exploring things like how people make little videos and is that something that makes any sense to do? And what do people even look at these days? Also, social media, despite all the things I've done, I don't know if I really like being out there in public.
Um, should we have a conversation about this? I think this is a very interesting subject.
Well, I mean, we can have a conversation. Of course, I'm like, I've got ADHD this morning because I'm like, oh, look, John Hawkinson says yesterday was Holly's new book day. You should announce it.
Uh, well, I would never presume to announce Holly's new book without Holly present. Holly, of course, the next time she comes on the show, we will do an official book launch celebratory moment. But she is flush off of her great success yesterday at her book launch, which was, I believe, in Minnesota, and which featured the estimable Kristen DeMay as host and conversant. And Kristen DeMay, whom some of you may remember from an early conversation on Dog Shirt TV, is the author of Jesus and John Wayne and is a real celebrity in the world that Holly's book is an entrance into, which is the world of, I think broadly speaking, we should call it um, uh, appalled, rigorous women writing about the evangelical, writing sort of sociologies of the evangelical communities in which they either grew up in Holly's part or are still part in Kristen's part. I refer you back to the Dog Shirt TV episode with Kristen. It's Jesus and John Wayne is a remarkable book, and she is a remarkable woman. Um, and it is a testament to Holly's new book and to Holly that Kristen did this launch event with her. Um, uh, and we will do our own. There are two launch Dog Shirt TV related launch events for Holly. The first is the next time she comes on the show. See earlier point about people being disorganized motherfuckers. We have not scheduled a specific book discussion, but we are going to do that as soon as she
For Holly?
well, we have as a
October.
launch, but the second one
I
is
see.
that the third.
In person in an in-person event, something in DC.
Well, we have not scheduled the launch announcement on the show
Right.
because that relies on people actually being here on any given day. We're going to do it the next time Holly and I are both here. I'm going to sandbag her with an hour discussion of her book. She doesn't know this yet, but now you all do, and she will learn this afternoon when she goes running and listens to Dog Shirt Daily, Dog Shirt TV. She'll learn that the next time she shows up on the show, we're going to have an impromptu. I may even have champagne for it at 8 o'clock in the morning.
Aw.
Um, and
Mimosas.
yeah, exactly. So that is happening. I mean, maybe tomorrow, maybe not Friday, because Friday Ev is bringing a guest. Um, uh, the other event that we have planned for Holly, as you all know, is a live stream from Politics and Prose, because Politics and Prose, my old friends there, I have literally written books at Politics and Prose. Um, like they have this nice cafe, and I wrote two books there. Um, they turned Holly down for a book event, a book reading, and Holly's not bitter about it. Holly's not capable of being bitter about anything. I'm pissed off about it. And so we are doing October's Dog Shirt Book Club, the Mara Book Club, live from Politics and Prose. Holly and I are going to do it from the cafe, and that is going to be on October 26th. And so we're going to do two events for Holly, but and you should all be ordering Holly's book and Alicia's book, by the way. Alicia and
I'd
I
much rather promote Holly's book.
but Alicia and I
It's
have
a lot
already
easier.
had a discussion about her book on the show.
Many
Um,
discussions.
yeah, but I want to go back to this subject of comms for introverts. And I want to vary up your point by asking you. So you raised two issues and you've, in my judgment, conflated them, and they're
You're
actually
just
separate.
saying what John Hawkinson writes in the chat.
I haven't, it's very hard to talk and read the chat at the same time. I don't know what John Hawkinson says, but one issue is introversion and not wanting to be very public, and valuing your privacy and that sort of thing. A second issue is pace of production, right? You say you don't understand how, like, Holly and I put out stuff every day.
I
Those
mean, I
actually,
marvel at it. Like, I don't want to say I don't understand. It's just amazing. I just don't have that skill.
no, there's a very simple explanation for it, which is, and I don't say this in any means as self-deprecation, um, but you deal with very big ideas. I deal with news. Sometimes news amalgamates into big ideas. I think in my whole life I've had one big idea, which is the idea behind the book that Susan Hennessy and I wrote together, with about the nature of the Trump presidency. Um, I I think that idea was almost completely original to Susan and me, and and we built it out of daily lawfare coverage, not in the sense that the text of the book is daily lawfare coverage. It certainly isn't, but the ideation of it was assembled out of a lot of news. Mostly things happen, I watch them, I read the underlying documents, and I write about them, and I deal with very small ideas. Um, and dealing with very small ideas is very easy to do in a rolling kind of way. Whereas thinking about an issue like, I want to figure out what would be necessary to reform the information environment. That's a freaking hard, like, you're not going to do that in a,
I guess you
you
just
know,
go study AI or something.
I mean, look, if you wanted to do a rolling commentary on information environment shit, you could do that and you wouldn't have trouble doing it. You wouldn't want to do that because that's what you're criticizing everybody else for doing.
It's like painting yourself into a corner.
Yeah. You're saying let's focus on the hard stuff. Well, if you focus on the hard stuff, Alicia Wanless, it's going to slow you down. So So I don't think that's a comms issue. I think that's a substantive issue. And by the way, it's a virtue, not a vice. But it's a virtue with a certain amount of inherent casualty to day-to-day productivity.
Yes. And then also talking points. But like, how do you guys, when you do get ready with me, which is, it's got a silly factor, you're putting yourself out there in ways that, I mean, is it uncomfortable?
Um so yes, but not in the way that you would think. So I have no problem being a public person. And the get ready with me stuff puts me out much less than being on TV every day did. Um, when I was on TV every day, I actually bought these glasses because the lenses are big, and when they become dark, which they do, they're transition lenses, and when I go outside and the sun hits them and they become dark, they actually make it less likely that people will recognize me. That's
You
why
think
I
you're
bought.
Superman? The glasses are gonna.
No, it just inhibits the more of your face that's covered, the less likely people are to recognize you. And I was being stopped enough that it was unpleasant. And so I started wearing hats and these glasses. And if you did this and the glasses turned dark, you would reduce the number of street interactions by, I would say, 40 to 60%. Not, it doesn't go to zero. And the
Do you
creepiest one.
hold on? Do you keep these props sitting beside you for all broadcasts?
No. The glasses, as I explained, turned up yesterday because I was looking for my passport. They have been missing for a while. Um, but here's the point. Once I stopped going on television, the number of those interactions went to, it's not zero, but it's small. And that happened almost right away because here's an observation about the information environment. If you are not constantly bombarding people with yourself, they forget who you are really fast. And nothing that I do puts myself out there the way going on MSNBC 3 times a week did. And so I actually feel like the get ready with me stuff is silly, but it's mostly silly to my friends. Mostly and mostly people who see it like, yeah, it's undignified, but I'm fine with being undignified. And I know I speak for Holly on this too. Um, Holly kind of likes being undignified. Um, so that part doesn't trouble me at all, but I understand why it would trouble others, particularly people who, are a little bit more reserved or who take themselves a little bit more seriously or who believe, as many academics do, that there's something about their station in life that, they shouldn't be doing stuff that's just very silly. I like silly. Um, so, um, and as long as you keep silly separate from your substantive work, um, I don't, it's actually never caused me a problem, um, professionally or personally.
I mean, I think about a friend who did do some silly things, and I thought that they were fun and they were clearly silly and they were clearly, I think there was a separation. But she had been so heavily targeted by
I'm
right-leaning
pretty sure I
media.
know which friend you're talking about. And unfortunately, the silly thing, if we're talking about the same person, involved lawfare. And um,
Oh, no, she did some, I don't know about lawfare, but she did some videos and
oh,
like
we're talking,
read.
we're
I
not
don't think you're
talking
talking about the
about,
same person.
we're not talking about cakes.
No.
Oh, okay. Um, and um, so then I don't know who you're talking about. I look, all things you do professionally involve a measure of risk. And in this environment, that is more true. But, and I'm certainly not arguing that people should be taking professional risks of the sort that I take. Um, that's a function, frankly, of the times we're living in and a belief on my part that if you're not making fun of the situation, you're part of the situation. If I lived in Canada, I might feel very differently about it because Canadian politics are relatively normal still, and I wouldn't believe in Canada that there was a national emergency going on that mockery was a necessary part of a response to. The Get Ready With Me videos are partly that. They're partly like, hey, we all have to get outside of our comfort zones and do things like make fun of ourselves by way of making fun of other parts of the situation and also um, take some, calculated risks in our interactions with law enforcement for being like in order to make points very visibly. Like that's actually just a sense that of obligation right now and a sense that satire and mockery are important right now. um I don't think it has anything to do with comms associated with my ideas. um when I want to promote an idea, I write a column about it. My rule these days is I go on television only to talk about my work or to promote other lawfare work. I never do, you know, um, talking head kind of stuff. But if somebody asks me to talk about my work, I do it 100% of the time. And I do think that's a separate thing. That's the comms associated with being, I don't know, a public intellectual, whatever that term I hate so very deeply much.
Intelligentsia.
Yeah. I, but what is, I guess my question to you is what's the anxiety here? Is the anxiety that if you don't do more, your ideas will not catch on? Is the anxiety that if you that there's no way to break through without being more aggressive? Like, what's wrong with what you're doing now, which is you write the stuff that you think and believe. You do an enormous amount of behind the scenes work organizing people who are thinking seriously about information spaces. And you talk about your work in public when asked. What's wrong with what you're doing?
Know if there's anything wrong with what I'm doing per se, but in a world in which, there's an encouragement, right? Like you're supposed to go out and promote. And if you don't, especially with the book, if you don't go out and promote, people won't buy it and it will die. You've only got a short window. And like you constantly, I feel like there's this pressure, social pressure. I wouldn't say, I mean, I would like, Hearst has been amazing as a publisher. I'll put that out there for anybody who is thinking about doing a book. As I think one thing you coached me on was not to expect publishers to do anything to market your book. So I think that there is this kind of maybe unspoken, maybe through guidance, pressure that you're supposed to constantly be doing this and putting yourself out there and talking about it, which is also to me like counterintuitive because like how much can you talk about the same thing over and over again? So park that. But then there's also this kind of social pressure. It's not like anybody's putting it on me, but you watch everybody else, right? Like at Carnegie, bless them, there's a recap of all the media coverage every day from other scholars. So you see people and they're just like always out there, or they have a podcast that they're running. And I look at you and you work all the time, right? Like you're like a content machine and you have lawfare. And so then there's this kind of maybe unconscious measuring where you're like, am I doing enough?
Yeah, okay. So I wanna respond to some of that because I think you're the unconscious measuring is harmful here in a way that um, probably is unnecessary. First of all, see point one, which is there aren't very many Carnegie scholars that are dealing with ideas as big and massive as the one that you are. Um, I work pretty closely with some Carnegie scholars, you know, um, and most of them are doing news analysis based on really important public events. The Carnegie scholar, other than you, that I work most closely with is Eric Charamella, who's a Ukraine-Russia analyst, and in my opinion, one of the absolute best in the city. Um, but that is an exercise in reading the news, talking to a lot of people, and figuring out better response. And just to give you an idea of how good Eric's response is, watch the video um, of the Lawfare podcast discussion, or listen to the Lawfare podcast from Monday, which was our live Lawfare Live about the Trump Zelensky European Leaders Summit. But this is news commentary, and it is news commentary of a particularly sophisticated and high quality variety. But there isn't an idea behind it that is like, oh, we're thinking about the information space all wrong, and we need to have an environmental, like an eco, I mean, that's a really big, profound concept. And it's not one that lends itself to daily news coverage. I just want to
You
say,
don't say.
yeah. Um, and so two things flow from this, and I'm saying this not for Alicia's benefit because she knows this. I'm not being patronizing. I am in the form of telling this to Alicia, explaining this to everybody else, which is that two things flow from this. One is that you go on shows and everybody immediately caricatures what you have to say and wants you to be saying things that are more that are less slow the fuck down and don't think you can solve this problem like sitting here on the show in a 15-minute interview. There is no action item that is not what anybody in a media setting wants to hear. And so what they do is they say to you questions like, so when you say there's no immediate action item here, what you mean is that we should do X, right? And they put words in your mouth, and that's uncomfortable and irritating. And then you text me in a rage. Um, and the second thing that happens is that people are much less likely to have you on in response to a specific news event. Well, if you were the person who's saying, I have a 6-step program for fixing the whole information ecosystem issue, and you were saying um, that every problem, no matter what it is, has a solution that sounds in one of my 6 steps. As I say in step 6, you know, I don't know. Um, yeah, they would have you on for everything, and you would be a pundit of precisely the type that you're criticizing. And I just think you have to have a comfort level with the idea that your ideation is not one that's going to be treated in this context.
I mean, I guess we should try maybe AI. That would work. If I would just get on there and like say what I want and then say we should try AI. AI will fix it. We could have an MOU like the UK and OpenAI where we just agree to look for ways to solve problems that we don't yet know about. I think that I mean that's what I'm walking away with. But let's talk about something comms related, but a little bit more fun. What are the thoughts on Gavin Newsom's approach to trolling Trump?
You mean having a podcast, or you
No, have you
mean
not seen what he's been doing? Like he's gone out on a deliberate like posting Trump style messages that are almost one for one, and then when people criticize him for it, he brings up the example of where he pulled this from, saying, "You're criticizing me. Where were you when, you know, Trump posted like this?"
all right, so I have not seen any of this. I will say I am for all things that make fun of the situation. I think it is a very important thing to do to make fun of the situation. I um, I think one of the things these clowns in most value is being taken seriously. And the refusal to take them seriously is a political act. And it is one of the ones I think is most important. And every time I am inclined to howl with rage at the moon, I try to remind myself that making fun of it is more effective than howling with rage at it, which is not to say that I don't go through life consumed with a fiery rage about what is happening. I just don't think shouting this is not normal or resist or, any of the other, or, slogans that we use is very useful. And I think being being comical about it, being satirical about it, being analytical about it is more useful, more valuable. Can I support that? No, because so far there's not a lot of evidence that anything works very well. But that is the strong instinct. It is something I really believe, and I think having politicians um, uh, do live that is important. There was an incident a bunch of years ago where AOC got a lot of criticism for a dance video that she had made a long time ago. Not that she's old enough to have made anything a long time ago, but um, and so she made a little video. I think it was on Twitter, maybe it was. I don't think TikTok existed yet, but of her going up to her office, with the plaque of her, and then dancing in front of it. And I thought that was exactly the right response. It was impish. It was unapologetic. It was not outraged, though the conduct being directed against her was genuinely outrageous. And so I think politicians having the temerity to try to just make fun of it is great. And I say that without having seen, like, you have just educated me about what Gavin Newsom is doing. I think it's good. And that's not to say it'll be effective. I don't know what will be effective. Um, but we are talking about it. And I think um, I think the other thing about making fun of the situation is that it shows at some level a refusal to be afraid of the situation, and I do think that's useful and empowering. And so, without having seen any of the videos in question or being able to talk about any of them, I like the instinct. What do you think of it?
Initial reaction is that I do also like the instinct. There is something en enjoyable about watching tables being turned. So the kind of bait and switch. So say something provocative that's clearly, if you've been following, based on this style of rhetoric, and then when being called on it, then saying, well, this wasn't acceptable before. Why aren't you paying attention to this? And constantly throwing it out there. I wonder where it leads. Like it does feel like a bit of a just more of a campaign kind of style, like to be the next president, which I'm not sure is the answer to the problems that America faces. It's not, I think, just about somebody else winning another election, although I can see why that would be so important to people. It seems to me that there are more systemic changes that are going to be required for America to heal.
That is clearly correct. I don't think, look, satire is an inherently negative form. There's no such thing as a constructive satire, right? Um, and um, and so when you are satirizing something, you are not working on solutions. Now, if you're the governor of California, you also have an obligation to work on solutions. And by the way, if you're Ben Wittes, you also, or Alicia Wanless, you also have an obligation to work on
I'm
solutions.
constantly reminded.
Yeah, but you can legitimately take the position, Alicia. I am working on solutions. I'm working on solutions on a longer time horizon than you are, and somebody has to be doing that. Um,
I do think
what
somebody running for office, there is more. I expect more of them to be trying to find solutions. And what I'm seeing across the board is that it feels like today's politicians aren't doing that at all. They're living in that media moment of like responding to news, and it's constantly kind of reactive. Maybe you get a little bit more out there, but it's not fixing the problem.
I think that's exactly right, and I think, look, any politician who is not engaged constructively in the, and I don't want to criticize, like, I don't know what California policy on anything except redistricting looks like right now, so it's I don't want to criticize him for, but if you are not, as a major politician in the United States, proposing constructive things, you're not doing your job. um, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't also be being very negative, including satirically negative, about what's happening right now. If you're not being negative about what's happening right now, you're blind. And so I don't begrudge him at all. In fact, I absolutely support being a satirical asshole. I think that's um That's an affirmatively good thing to do. It is an inadequate thing to do. Um,
Because that's the only thing you're doing, obviously. But I mean, more things can be true at once than not. There is this, I feel like there's this impetus for everybody to be kind of binary or only this one thing or only this one
exactly.
approach. And that, like, I mean, that's nonsensical. And I kind of wonder where it comes from. This comes back to Carol T had also said this, and this book, I'm trying to get this author on, called The Perfection Trap. But this whole idea that we're all supposed to be perfect now. And everybody's supposed to be perfect all the time, and maybe, I mean, the author's idea of this in the book is that it comes from the social media culture. It's probably there before, but apparently there's some evidence that social perfectionism is on the rise.
So, look, I struggle with this every day because every morning I wake up and I feel that fixing the situation is my job. And I experience that as a commandment unto me. And I fail at it every single day. And I am aware that, in fact, it is not my individual job, that there are no circumstances in which I personally will succeed at this. I mean, by the way, if you have Sarah, to have a conversation with Sarah Longwell or with, Bill Crystal or with, I'm sure, AOC, they will say the same thing, that they experience this as their own personal responsibility, and um, and wake up every day with some level of a real sense of urgency about this. Tim Miller has talked about this, and go to sleep at night despondent about having failed at it. And, that's been my life for 9 years. And I, no amount of telling myself that this is larger than me, like that I am not the person responsible for fixing this. There is no person responsible for fixing this. All you can do is all you can do. And so for me on Friday, that meant risking an interaction with the Secret Service and being satirical about the Alaska summit by pouring chalk on the Russian embassy sidewalk in front of it. And it meant over the weekend processing that experience in a fashion that explicated something about our relationship with, in DC, that is, with federal law enforcement and with the right to express yourself. And then on Monday, or it ran yesterday, to actually suggest legislative fix to this, having done that work, what would be the appropriate response if I were, say, a DC city councilman? That's all I know how to do, is like, you know, figure out some engaging way to rage at the system, at our reality, both in DC, our reality in DC, and our reality in Alaska, um, and then to talk about it in a way that helps shed light on some options. But like, the perfectionism problem is real. It's not, you know, it's not a it, you know and by the way, when someday we collectively succeed at this, it will never be obvious what worked and what didn't. We're still arguing about that, about the civil rights movement, about, what's the thing that made the Euromaidan effective? You don't get to know the answer to that question, and just like comfort level with the fact that we're all trying a million things, and some of them work and you never get to know which ones those are. And therefore, go out there, put yourself out there, put yourself a little bit at risk. I'm not saying to anybody to, to go set themselves on fire, or self-immolation, bad. But put yourself a little bit at risk. Get out of your comfort zone and do something, and you're never going to know whether it was effective. You don't get to know that. All you get to know is that if everybody stays home, we're fucked. That's my answer to the
That was
perfectionism.
cheery, and you ended at 9.
We're going to leave it there. Alicia, thank you for joining today on very short notice when you were self-declared not entirely functional. The shirt is awesome. Stand up again so that we can all see the shirt.
Okay.
There it is. And folks, we're going to be back tomorrow. Maybe it'll be the day that Mike Feinberg shows up. Maybe it won't. Um, and on Friday, we have a special guest from Ev. But you will be there tomorrow, and I will be there, and it's going to be a blast. And maybe Alicia will be there. And remember, people are disorganized motherfuckers. And if you are the person who sent me this shirt, get in touch, because I want to remember the history of this shirt, the legislative history of which is lost in the mists of time, along with my passport. And I want to remember how this shirt came to be, and what its story is. And also, I'm pretty sure, whoever you are, I have never thanked you, and I need to remedy that error on my part. Folks, keep the faith, pray with a raised fist, and we will be back tomorrow.